Okay, of course, the panel is about the pros and cons of the open versus the closed primary for the Libertarian Party. But I think it's likely that a lot of people in the audience don't know much about the Libertarian Party at all. Will each of you tell us what you like about the Libertarian Party and why you're a Libertarian? That's just perception.
It doesn't sound like it. All right, so my matriculation to Libertarians happened, I would say, about a decade-long transition, right? I had been very active in Republican Party politics. Chad and I knew each other when we were both on different congressional staffs, so I ran in that crowd, very conservative, and over about a decade, themes about individual liberty, where we're talking about people being able to choose how they want to live their lives, whether we're talking about freeing up people to start businesses and be innovative in the kind of businesses and solutions they provide to customers. Whatever we're talking about, the principles of liberty continue to sit there and percolate, so to speak. And probably a few years ago, I was like, I think I'm ready to formally make this change, and started thinking about registering as Libertarian. Well, at that time, we couldn't. There was no recognized Libertarian Party in the state of Oklahoma. So I had to wait until that was offered, which was last spring, when the Libertarian Party formally was recognized by the state and people could change their registration. So what is it about libertarianism that attracts me? It's the idea that individuals can control their own fates. It's the idea that individuals can not just individually do things, but collectively do things on a basis that provides a mutual benefit to everyone involved. And for me, that's a very powerful message.
I don't know, after this, I'm scared to be a libertarian. Talk about aggression. The thing that attracted me was, like I said before, I fought my entire life to have my own rights, whether it was liberty or to own tigers or private property. Nobody should have that right to choose what you do with your life. There's some things that sway on the other side of the table that I might not agree with, and that's all crimes should not be without a victim. My brother was killed by a drunk driver. He didn't ask to be a victim. So there has to be some laws. And that's probably the only part of libertarianism I don't agree with, is we get rid of all laws. It would be mass chaos. Okay, we have to have accountability. And that's all there is to it. But shoving something down somebody's throat is not the way to win over anybody, to support any party. And that's why the Republicans and the Democrats are in such a mess right now. It's because they're tired of the normal politics of you either believe what we believe with or you can get the hell out. And I think in order to grow this party, you're going to have to invite some people in and educate them what the standards and the belief of the Libertarian Party is. Because a lot of people don't know. And trust me, I talk to over 5,000 people a week. And all they see in the normal realm of libertarians right now, especially on the internet, is bathroom issues, this issue. As an openly gay man that has been in this state for 20 years, run for president openly gay, and running for governor is openly gay, I'm not going to shove it down your throat or your throat because you have to believe in just me being gay. Just let me be gay and let me run my life, okay? And let me pay my bills, and if I can win, we're not going to pay taxes anymore, okay? Because that's not my right. It's no different than the right of carrying a firearm. It's my constitutional right, but it's not my right to pay a $100 permit for that right. Okay? And that's the part of the Libertarian Party I do agree with very strongly is it's your life, it's your liberty, and it's your property. And the government needs to get the hell out. Okay? But I don't think you can force anybody to like you. You have to earn that respect. You have to earn that appreciation. And I think by allowing 316,000 people in our door, and let them decide on their own whether or not they made the right decision or not to follow somebody that's running for governor as a libertarian. Maybe a year from now they'll decide, well, hell, I made the wrong mistake. Or maybe your party will be over 30,000 or over 500,000 at the next election because you did pick a leader and you did show that you're there for the people, for their life, liberty, private property. Okay? But fighting for one small little group right now of 3,900 people and just shutting the door on that idea, it is not common sense to me at all. I'm sorry, we disagree with Rex. I love you, buddy, but you scare the hell out of me as a governor. If you don't agree with somebody being a libertarian, hardcore, sign up, give your life to me. What are you going to do when somebody doesn't agree with you as governor?
Well, I'm going to offer a three-part response to why I like libertarianism. Number one is pretty basic. I just really hate the government.
Right.
I can point to several instances in my life where the government has significantly made my existence more painful, and that's reason number one. Reason number two is I think libertarian policy is the best system for governance, dedication to free market capitalism, anti-war policy, social freedom. But my favorite part about the Libertarian Party is the dedication to individualism that it has. It's a place for unconventional people in the Libertarian Party, a place where they can succeed. I mean, look at me. I'm 19 years old. I'm an atheist. I'm openly transgender and pansexual. I smoke weed, and I listen to heavy metal. And I'm up here. And I'm up here with some very important people. And several years ago, I never would have thought I could be here with these very important people. Believe it or not, I used to be a Republican, and I'm here with two people up here who have Wikipedia pages, and it's just very overwhelming to me the fact that I come home in the party as different as I am, as unconventional as I am, a place where people don't really give a crap if I do things my way, if I do things in a way that isn't seen as culturally acceptable. I'm taboo, I'm unconventional, and I'm an individualist, and that's why I love the Libertarian Party.
Like most people get into libertarianism later in life, my process was long, like Joe's. I mean, Joe just recently came over. I just recently signed up as a libertarian. I mean, as soon as I could in Oklahoma, I did, but my decision to do so wouldn't have taken place too much longer before we became a recognized party. Immediately prior to this, I was a member of the Americans Elect Party. I was looking for centrism. I was looking for compromise. I was looking for people who could get things done regardless of party and independence. But what I was actually looking for was a party that respected individual rights and individual freedom and treated everybody with respect, regardless of their beliefs. That every person was equal, that every person had a valid idea and a valid argument that was worth consideration and discussion, whether they were in it or not. And forgive me for my appearance of aggression. It's not aggression, it's passion. I have had a very tumultuous life. A lot of things have happened in my young life that were government related, that were family related, and it took me probably 10 to 15 years after I became an adult before I started to recognize the patterns that were taking place in society in general that were leading so many of us to have these kinds of lives. And a lot of it was government interference. A lot of it was a lack of respect for each individual basic human rights. So when I came to the convention in 2012, the first year that Gary Johnson ran for president and didn't make the ballot in Oklahoma, his campaign approached me and said, hey, take a look at this guy. If you think he's worthy of your time, let's see if you can get him on the ballot. And I looked into him, and I did, and I immediately was hooked. Because Gary was one of the most accepting, kindest individuals I've ever talked to. He was knowledgeable about the issues despite the means that you see on television and on the internet. He respected every human being for their individual value and their individual worth. And he saw the value in their uniqueness and their individuality. And that was what I had been looking for. I worked with his organization, the All-American Initiative, for the next 3 or 4 years, and then finally the Libertarians organized here in Oklahoma, and now we're a party. And we have a very powerful message that appeals to everybody. I kind of adopted a philosophy of Gary's that said everybody's a libertarian, they just don't know it yet. And it's completely out of lack of exposure. And Joe is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I welcome him into the party, I welcome him into this race. But for instance, he has grave concerns over what he believes the Libertarian Party stands for. No laws, all chaos, no order. And that is not accurate. The Libertarian Party wants you to be able to live your life as you see fit, as long as you do not interfere with anybody else's right to do the same thing. To that end, there are laws in place. For instance, we're not going to get rid of murder laws. It's still going to be wrong to murder because that violates somebody else's right to live. We are going to continue to prosecute theft because it is wrong to take somebody else's property that they've earned. We are going to continue to prosecute force, fraud, and coercion. Dishonesty violates somebody else's right to exercise their rights in the free market. It violates free market principles, and that's what a libertarian core value is. Joe is a libertarian through and through. He just doesn't know it yet because he hasn't been exposed to enough of the same rational libertarians that lets him know that he is full on work.
Lots of Facebook libertarians.
Yeah, the Facebook
You
libertarians tend to
You
be
gotta
the
be
worst.
careful.
But you know, you need to talk to the individuals. You need to talk to people like Traci, Aaron, myself that have steeped in this for a few years and have come to grasp the principle. And there's an old science fiction writer that used the term grok. And it was a term that was meant that you understand something so strongly and so powerfully that it becomes your core essence. It becomes the core of your being. Everything you do, everything you act on for the rest of your life will be defined by that principle. And that's something that libertarianism is worthy of. That is something that a person can grok and that they can live the rest of their life by. And that they can encompass and wrap their entire life around. And I have, and Aaron has, and Traci has, and many other people have. People like Joe have taken the first steps. Mr. Brzezinski here has been doing it for longer than I even knew what a libertarian was. This has become his life. Gene, same thing. I became a libertarian because I found what they found back in 1971 when they actually founded the party, and that is a principle that you can build your life around, that you can live by, and you can be proud to live by, and that you can live by for the rest of your life. And that's what turned me into a libertarian. And again, forgive my aggressive manner of speech. It's something that I was conditioned to very early in life. But it's not aggression, it's passion. I so firmly believe in the principles of the Libertarian Party that it has encompassed my core being. And that's what you'll see in pretty much everything I do. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much. Questions from the audience?
So everyone seems to hold the same core belief of individual rights and condemning the sin of preventing someone from living their full life. So how do you reconcile that position with the overall scaling back of government, if not abolition of government, in regards to things like anti-discrimination laws, housing discrimination watchdogs, things like that?
Okay, everybody can take this question.
We'll just pass it down the line the other way. It's exactly what I was just talking about. Just because you reduce the government and scale it back doesn't mean you stop prosecuting things like force, fraud, and coercion, of which discrimination is. A person has the right to free thoughts. You can think whatever you want to. You can typically even say whatever you want to until it gets to the point of force, fraud, or coercion. Once you start aggressively restricting somebody else's rights to live the life they want to live, which includes housing, which includes anti-discrimination law, that's when you start violating the non-aggression principle, and that's something that libertarians will still prosecute, that we still want to prosecute. We don't want to allow people to act in any way they choose if that is going to restrict somebody else's ability to live their life as they choose. So when you hear talking about scaling back government, I would put forth to you that the government has been the biggest contributor to force, fraud, and coercion in the history of the world. Pretty much everything that has occurs because there's a politician in Washington, D.C., or there's a lobbyist that paid a politician in Washington, D.C. to change the laws in their favor so that they are able to better force, gain by fraud, or coerce somebody else into doing something that they normally wouldn't choose to do. So it serves a double function to scale back government by, one, reducing the largest contributor to force, fraud, and coercion, and two, allowing the resources that the government has to more effectively prosecute those instances, investigate those instances of force, fraud, and coercion, such as discrimination and such, because things like the war on drugs go away. 52% of the Oklahoma prison population would go away if we didn't jail people for victimless crimes. That frees up a lot of resources to go after greater prosecution for discrimination cases, or child advocacy cases, or any of the situations where we're seeing a lot of problems. The jail system in Oklahoma, I was talking to Chat before this all began, there were 10 deaths in jail, one of which was arrested for being drunk in public. A man died under the government's thumb for being drunk in public in Oklahoma County. That type of abuse cannot and should not be tolerated by anybody. I don't care what your core values and beliefs are. You should not believe that murder by the state is legal. So, that's something that's unifying, and that goes well beyond libertarianism. That goes beyond respecting each individual person's basic human dignity and human rights. So when we're talking about scaling back the government, that's not necessarily a uniquely libertarian thing. That's a human thing. That's a humanitarian thing. So don't believe the Facebook libertarians that Joe's talking about when they're saying, anarchy now, everybody do whatever you want to, because that's not the case. That's not what libertarianism stands for, and you will rarely find a candidate running for office that embraces those values, because that's not what we're about.
Really like your socks, man. Just to clarify, anarchists in the party, they tend to not run for office. They're the kind of people who don't vote because they consider it immoral. The average libertarian probably falls somewhere between classical liberalism and anarchy. That's about where I am. And when it comes to anti-discrimination and the government making sure that people are protected from each other, most libertarians believe that a small government is necessary to protect people from each other aggressing against each other. When people discriminate in housing, when people discriminate in sale of products, when people don't sell you food, segregation in the South, a lot of these problems stem from coercive state monopoly. 85% of all the products that you will ever buy are in markets that are owned by 2 or 3 major corporations, and there's a reason that these corporations lobby for increasing regulation. That's so they can buy out their competitors. I think Milton Friedman would agree with me in that breaking up coercive state monopolies is one of the best solutions we can provide the public to create more choice in the marketplace, to create more competitors who are going to treat people right, to return to a free market society where people actually have to do good by people in order to succeed. The government doesn't have that accountability. The government takes your money and they do whatever they want with it. And you can try to vote people out of office who do that, but they'll be replaced by someone else. And the only way to limit and mitigate that is to drastically scale back the power of government. So to the point where they aren't able to impose coercive monopolies to their lobbyists, their corporate sponsors. The government is primarily the issue here. It's I don't think anyone up here wants to repeal anti-discrimination laws. There are certainly people within the party who are like that, but then again, they tend to be on the more anarchist side. They don't run for office. Does that answer your question? Okay.
By the time they get to the end of us, they pretty much said it all in there. Yeah. The whole idea is to get rid of all of the government overreach. Okay, last year alone, they passed, or they introduced 3,338 bills and statutes to take more freedoms away from you. Okay, the idea is not to take away anti-discrimination laws or anything like that. There's a whole lot more out there being discriminated against right now in the state of Oklahoma, rather than just housing, color, and your financial status. We've got small farmers being discriminated against in order to empower the larger corporations. I mean, it goes everybody's big pockets up there in that big capital, okay, getting paid by lobbyists, and that's what we have to stop. But until we get enough libertarians in office to get some of these Republicans and Democrats that are taking all this money from lobbyists away, it ain't never going to change. I would like to see more laws introduced about bullying, cyber stalking. We're not going to take those away because there are victims in those crimes and horrible victims in those crimes. I'm sure Traci's been a victim in some of these crimes. I've been bullied and harassed my entire life. And it's very important that we hold some of them laws in place. And it's very important that we impose a couple more laws in those situations. But there's also too many people making money out there off of being discriminatory in, like you said, housing and stuff like that. Because I know people personally that don't need that housing. But unfortunately, somebody out there has got a frame in the pocket. Okay? And that's what we're going to straighten out.
I don't know that I can add a whole lot more insightful than what the previous three have said. I think for libertarians, expanding rights for people is a very important issue. And what we see is a lot of the anti-discrimination laws that we have today were in fact results of other laws that were in fact discriminatory. And so as was mentioned, I think Rex mentioned earlier, the state has been one of the largest purveyors of discriminatory action, historically speaking. And so laws that tear down those kind of discriminatory practices are essential to libertarian ideas of breaking down state-enforced preference for one group over another, regardless of what that group is essential to the libertarian ideal. So I think, certainly as has been expressed on this panel, I think that most libertarians you can talk to would say that rather than trying to prohibit that continued expansion of freedom, that libertarians would be very much inclined to redirect resources to that type of thing as opposed to starting wars or punishing people for minor offenses and those types of things.
Okay, we're going to be wrapping up, but let's have a few more questions from the audience.
I want to kind of get back to the issue of open versus closed. I trust the four of you know campaign finance, right? You know that there's a limit when you can give the core primary and after primary. Well, one argument often made is that independents who vote in an open primary are likely to vote for the same party in the general election. By this logic, one would have to compete early in the race for the independent vote, am I right? This would empty the coffers of a campaign before they make it past a primary, while only guaranteeing the vote that year. Future candidates would have to go through the same process. Wouldn't closed primaries encourage more registered libertarians, thus ensuring more future libertarian votes with less monetary expenditures?
What's the big item?
I'm not involved.
And what I got out of that was all about money. Hey, if I have to raise $100,000 for the primaries, I'm going to raise $100,000. If I have to raise $2 million during the general election, that's what we're going to do. Because we believe that strong that our life, liberty, and property is being taken away from us. So it should matter. Shouldn't matter though. I've already dumped so much into this election, and I'm not gonna give up because it's our right, it's our liberty, and it's our property, and it's damn time we take it back.
Yeah.
All right, so taking this from a campaign perspective, if you're a candidate and you're worried about being able to save money for a general election, just stop. Just stop. You need to be, every dime you get ought to be devoted towards the election you're running right now. And if that's a primary, it's a primary. What we see in campaigns is candidates who win will always recoup the money that they spent in the primary for the general election. So this idea that a closed primary is going to be financially beneficial to the candidates, at least their campaigns, is certainly, I think, a false idea. I also think it's a false idea that it's going to produce more libertarian voters. I don't think that's true either. And it's not going to produce better candidates either, because one thing we know is competition produces the best results. And that's true whether you're talking about cars, whether it's talking about houses, or whether it's talking about campaigns. Competition produces better results. And so this idea that if we close this off, we'll have better candidates, I think is directly opposite every experience that we've seen, and it's certainly opposite most libertarian perspectives on just about anything else. I don't know why campaigns would be considered separate. The other thing I just want to mention real quickly here, because I've heard it a couple of times. Well, first of all, let me say this. One of the things that I think is real important to understand about this panel is we're all libertarians, and we all fundamentally agree about most everything that we do. We're talking about a very technical issue of who to allow to vote and participate in our elections. And while the feelings about these may be strong, or the feelings may be expressed in a way that is passionate, I think at the end of the day, it's important to recognize that we all walk out of here, all these on this panel currently are going to walk out here with an L by our name. We are libertarians. I think we all want the Libertarian Party to grow and be successful. And the question is, how do we achieve that? Having said that, I think those arguing for closed primaries are wanting to achieve something that is impossible to achieve. Because I keep hearing this. We need to control the message. We need to ensure that the message is a libertarian message. Well, the fact is you can't, because anybody under the sun can register as a libertarian. And regardless of whether or not they sign the non-aggression pact, there's nothing holding them, once they've registered, from running as a candidate, as a libertarian. And the Libertarian Party cannot control their message. They can say whatever the heck they want. You can try to influence it. You can try to say, well, this is what we believe as libertarians. But at the end of the day, a socialist could sign up as a libertarian, run as a libertarian, and there's nothing that the party can do about it, except encourage maybe somebody else to run it with. And so trying to control the message is you're trying to do something that you just can't do. And for that reason, I think we would be better off spreading the message rather than trying to hone it into a small group. I agree.
You know, James is absolutely right, and you'll never hear me argue the point that says that we have absolute control over our message as far as each individual candidate is concerned. But we're looking at two different perspectives here. Everything that James just discussed is talking about a single candidate in a single campaign. It does not take the long term into view. Remember, we're talking about a social movement that takes generations to occur. My involvement in this campaign isn't because I harbor any delusions that it's going to be a cakewalk for a libertarian in the state of Oklahoma, as red as it is, to walk into a primary, come out of it strong as an ox, walk into a general election against Todd Lamb, who already has over $2 million in his account, and have any reasonable hope of success. Can it happen? Sure, absolutely. When we're talking about message control, it isn't about whether or not we can control what one candidate who signs up with the Libertarian Party is saying. We are talking about the long term. We are talking about requiring people to join the fold where they have peer pressure and where they have accountability to the state party, where our current chair, Tina, is with us today, where she would have the opportunity to review a campaign statement of a person who is a registered member of the Libertarian Party and put that person up for censure when they call for the murder of whoever or whatever ideal, whenever they call for the abdication of state property. She has the ability to censure them. And that is a strong statement within the party that basically alienates them from the party and separates our message from theirs. So when we are talking about controlling the message, we are not talking about controlling what any individual candidate says. We are talking about having the consistency and the pressure of our relatively small group. We're spread out all over the state. But a lot of us do talk to each other online on a regular basis. And when you have that type of accountability to your peers, that's the strongest accountability you can have. There is no law, there is no ambiguous philosophical text written 300 years ago that can contain the power of peer pressure. Instead, Joe will have more influence on my campaign message than any other person. I will have, or Chris, he's not with us today, but we two will have more influence on his campaign message than any other person outside of himself. The accountability and the message control happens from the peer group, it happens from the structure, it happens from the membership, it happens from the belonging. And that's the situation that we're looking at, and that's the situation that we're talking about. And that's the situation we lose if we go to an open primary, because independent voters have no accountability to anyone.
Thank you. It is true. Mr. Davenport is correct that anyone can register as a Libertarian. The Libertarian Party can never completely eliminate this possibility from happening. Someone like Connie Johnson or Dan Fisher, both who I consider to be very anti-liberty, could register Libertarian and run onto our party. I don't think they would, because they would lose probably all of their political capital to run as a third party. I don't know why they would do that. But the fact is, we can limit the problems of unlibertarian candidates running within our party. There are some very, very problematic people, such as Christopher Cantwell, who identify with the Libertarian Party. And because of closed primary systems, we can mitigate these effects. This is the issue of failure mode effects analysis. Guaranteed benefits versus speculative harms. I think it's worth the investment to put into our security as a party to eliminate some of the potential marginal benefits an open primary could have on the party. The message is a building block. We need to build on the message in order to be taken seriously as a party, but we have to start from somewhere. If we can't even have a consistent message in the first time we're ever having a governor's primary as a Libertarian Party in the state of Oklahoma, building blocks. Build on the message and advance the party that way. Limit the potential for harm that outsiders could do, and make sure that we invest in our future as a party.